So today we have our special guest, Elizabeth here, and I'm so excited for our Leimomi TV series where we talk about mastering your soul's gifts and really mastering your genius. So every person has a very unique energy, the way that their soul is, and I wanted to share with my audience like their stories and their perspective and I hope that really inspires everybody to really take action aligned to their soul. So welcome, Miss Elizabeth.
Thank you.
Long time coming. So why don't you start with telling us, who you are, what you do, how did you, really become a master genius at what you do and what like led you to this point?
Sure. So, like you introduced, my name is Elizabeth Maria Caraballo. And I have coined myself as a vibrational guide, but I am a coach in many ways where I am holding someone in a space of an equivocal knowing of their magnificence. And I don't let that go. And I just keep calling someone towards me. And I'll try to find a million ways to flip it on its head until I resonate with that person or those people or however that works. For me, my journey has been very exciting and very long and twisted and unpredictable. And I really feel like that's part of why I'm so good at my particular angle on it. So I grew up in a Pentecostal and Baptist family, which is kind of crazy. So we have like the Midwestern, really mellow Baptist, and then we would go to the Bronx and it'd be like crazy Puerto Rican Pentecostal, like, fire and brimstone and a full 18-piece band, and, it's crazy. And then I would go back to South Dakota and be like the pipe organ, and we're singing like 18,000-year-old hymns, And so I've always had this like oscillation between extremes. And what for me, as growing up as a person, identifying what I felt to be true, I always really felt like I didn't buy into any of it because I could see so many similarities. I knew that they weren't definitive. And so I've always been on the hunt for like what was beneath everything. So what is the common denominator between the people with the snakes and then the people who with the hoods and then the people who wear the saris and the people I just had this feeling all along growing up that there was just something much more intelligent and implicit between all of that. And that's what I chose to follow because I'm very rebellious. So for me to adhere to a set of rules, it has to be as expansive of a spectrum as I'm capable of being. And I'm a Pisces, I'm crazy, I'm Puerto Rican, like I could be a lot of things, I am mutable, I am very transitional. I've been moving all my life as a military brat, so that chameleon status is very good and easy for me to be in, and so it's hard to identify with one thing. So as I continue to go, that search brought a lot of things to me, which is crazy, like my mother. Right, we lived on a Christian campus. She gave me the Seth books when I was 16, which is completely outside of most Christian ideology. But, it resonated. I attracted what I was on the hunt for, even though I was 16 and, I didn't know any of this stuff in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And that really started. I worked with Jose Silva. I did the Seth books and then kept moving on and on and on. And then I found the Esther Hicks kind of theology in my early 20s. But throughout all of this stuff, I was dealing with, mental illness, post-traumatic stress disorders, and lots of varying changes, family illnesses, family roles. I come from a very traditional Spanish family. You don't leave the house till you're married. And here I am at 18 trying to run the world and get tattoos. And they're like, oh my God, what did we do wrong? But I'm so stubborn. I am a rebel, but I'm really stubborn. I think that's like a tenet of most rebellion. And so I just kept moving forward and forward. And then through my 20s, I don't think there was a pond I didn't put my toe down in. I wanted to try all different kinds of ideology and I just wanted to see if there was this definitive moment of this is the answer. And then, so I was a rolling stone. I grew no moss at all. I just kept going. And then, I got pregnant and I had a kid, and that changed everything because all of a sudden everything just stopped. and my conditions did not apply anymore. And I was, kind of subjugated to a default that really wasn't of my choice. And that's a whole nother side of spirituality that is universal in experience, but really started to clarify what was mine and what wasn't mine, what did resonate with me and what did. And so over the last 10 years, it's been just going right back to the forge with it and seeing what melts down and seeing what sticks. And that's kind of how I worked into saying more of like a vibrational guide, because I don't have a strict ideology, but I do believe in a very tangible, perceptible essence that has a beginning that's ineffable, but totally understood and universal, which to me would be like vibration or feeling or essence or that kind of stuff. So that's really where I work, because my only ability that whole time from, let's say, 15 to this point has been my ability to look inward. And that is where I was always able to start my change or next step of evolution or next learning or whatever it was that would take me to my next place. And that is why I focus on that. But what I have found, because I didn't start doing this publicly until a year ago, was that the animal medicine cards gave me a beautiful bridge to translate some of this thought and theory that I've collected over the last 25 years into something that's actionable, tangible, relatable, and kind of earthbound. Because I totally acknowledge, I'm the kind that's like, woo, you're like, hey, lady, come on back down. Like, I'm on earth. Would you like to join me? So the animal medicine cards, I was given them by a mentor about 21 years ago. And I love them because they are non-denominational. They take the gamut of what's already ours in our human experience, and they find very loving ways of describing them, influencing them, showing you how you can use it in your life, or maybe how you can correct something with a certain kind of medicine, which the medicine of the animal is basically the attribute that they exemplify in a beautiful way for us to learn from and disciple from. So that whole thing was underplaying over the last 20 years. And then I just kind of put the two together last year and just started doing them. I did like 30 days of lives of just sharing different readings. And then I realized, oh, wow, this is a powerful translator for some people. Because I think when we're in transition, the most difficult thing to get out from under is our own assumption of our lack of value or our mistakes or any of those things. And these cards are so loving, it just kind of washes over that every single time. They're not like a divining tool as much as they are like a warm, hot, cold game where you're like, oh, you're getting warmer, oh, you're getting colder. It has a much more gentler feel, which kind of goes with the idea of vibration and essence and notions over rules and action and reaction. So the more general I get, I find I have a better result with moving through and kind of helping other people navigate where they're at to get to where they want to be. But the whole trick is that at that time, you still have to be happy with what you're doing. And so I find that these cards really help with that kind of a bridge that's still a pleasant experience.
So when you were growing up as a child, like what really lit you up? Was it like, how does that play with why you're interested in this today?
Well, when I was a kid, a couple things really lit me up. First of all, being by myself. I know that sounds crazy, but that was the first thing I did. My mother told me the first moment you were able to walk and direct your own body, she said, I crawled into the room and I shut the door. And I didn't, she said she had to go in there. It was like 3 hours later. And I was like, are you okay? Because I'm okay. I don't need you right now. So I think the joy that I get in solitude and stuff allows for a lot of this exploration that doesn't have rules. So I pride myself to think very outside the box. And then secondly, I love creation. I love to make something out of nothing or to transform something's purpose into something else. So how that works for this is like, yeah, it's kind of like that thing, like bring me your weary. So I say, yeah, come with what you got, because I'm so excited about playing with it and molding it and transmuting it, which is the process of taking something and breaking it down and loving it and breaking it down and loving it and breaking it down until it works, until it actually fits what you need. So those two things in and of itself, those two things kind of set me up. And I grew up around a lot of Native American culture. I grew up very much in love with my great grandmothers and their roots. So one of it is from West Africa. She came as a slave to Puerto Rico, and the other one is from the mountains. And they both have Christianity, but they have a strong mysticism that they haven't quite let go of. They're the more ancient cultural traditions in my lineage, and that drew me into them, and it kept me very safe, I believe, because of that bond. And so it really let me have no problem accepting, because folklore is oftentimes illogical to our westernized way of thinking. So you're like, oh my gosh, the rabbit was a warrior and it talked to a witch? That doesn't make sense, right? You come up with all these ideas. But because I had that predisposition to kind of seek out and be comfortable with some of those outside ways of translating universal experience, it really just set this up beautifully.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
So tell us a vulnerable story about your life or your business. Like, what did it feel like to kind of like go through misalignment also? Like, how did you get back into your alignment?
Well, I had a 2 or 3 year chunk, and I met you on the last year of truth, acceptance, because you're not always going to love it. And then just constantly talking myself into an enthusiasm that I can make it something different. And I had done a lot of business ventures with other women, which is, relationships with women are very important to me. I'm like a girlfriend. I'm really diehard. Like once I'm on you, sorry, like that's it. I should come with a warning. I'm the gift that keeps on giving, But and they all failed, all these different ventures. I moved to Florida. Like I did major transitions and sacrifices because I thought, oh, this is it. And it never really was. And they really weren't about me, but they were sound investments and, sound, a return, or, like everything was supposed to be logically work out, but it never did. So I came back home after like a year and a half of a lot of like career upsets like that. And I basically I drove home in 2 days. It was 15 hours I drove every day. I was lit up. Like I was just like, this is great. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. I felt so in charge and alive. And I got here and nothing was working out. I had to stay with my parents, and my sister was staying with my parents too, because they were in the middle of moving to Washington. So it was like crazy family unintended reunion. I'm trying to figure out what to do with my life. Everybody's in transition. And I couldn't get a job, just like a regular job. I have 20 years experience in, restaurant management and all this stuff. And I just couldn't get a job, and I was freaking out. And finally, I just kind of gave up one week, and I was just like, oh, forget it. And then my good friend, not at that point, but an acquaintance of mine, Monique Alvarez, posted, hey, I'm going to take on some artists. I've been an artist all my life. It was like how I would get that little extra bit of money, like when you're a waitress, you're like, oh, you sell a painting real quick for a couple $100, like it was just kind of how I would get by all the time. So I thought, I should try it. But I will say that the caveat in that was that I was not quick. When I saw it, I got really upset. I was like, you know what? I'm done with dreams. I'm done with trying to be amazing. Just get me a job at a grocery store with some benefits and I'll be fine. And my sister actually saw the same post, and she came to me. She's like, oh my God, did you see that about Monique? You should totally try it. This would be a great time in your life. Monique's a go-getter. And I was like, no, I'm not dreaming anymore. And I just like, let it go. I was so extra.
Very dramatic.
So I did. And it took me 2 days to get off my dramatic tuchus and call her. I'm so glad I did. The first year, she really, for me and her, it was more about me getting out of that really serious depression and survivor mode. Because what we forget is that we can acclimate so easy. We're brilliantly created. So after 2-3 years of career stress and constant moving, I became acclimated. So I didn't realize I was walking into something kind of, shell-shocked in a space of like emergency, and nothing felt solid. So that first year was about unraveling that knot and practicing how to assure myself outside of any conditions that I knew of. So it required bringing other people into my life. That was a big one. It required me allowing someone like Monique to come in and get a little bit closer to my chaos. That was different. By the middle of that year, though, so this would be the middle of 2016, I was getting the hang of it. And I was like realizing that I had a gift of articulation. I was still working on the jewelry, doing the art thing. And then I met you. And I was in your group that you have online, Soul Aligned. And you started putting prompts up. And then I've got Monique like in my ear because she's very practical. She's like, do this, do that. You know, like her medicine is straight up like down the line straight. And you were very much like, what do you feel? And you had an articulation I resonated with. And then how do we acknowledge that? And then I had this going on. So I had like this confluence of things that were beginning to make me shift in places that were pretty dormant, you know, between expansion and money making, between feeling good and being proud of a product. Anything in there that was still all really new. And then I just had to dive really deep into what you do, which was like that shell clearing and getting really clear about the gifts and the, you know, the different dimensions of understanding and reality and how we incorporate things. And so over that 6 months, and I mean, I did everything. I did this, I did tapping, I did essential oils, I was drinking teas, I was getting massages, just anything. Cause I was like, it was all a front attack on my knot, you know, those were knots that, I mean, by the time I got my clearing with you that December, I was dealing with something that happened in my essence, my decision-making self as a baby, as a little tiny baby. So it took a lot to even have the guts to acknowledge it, much less give it credence so I could work on it. So that 6 months was not pretty. And I went through anger and jealousy and fear and entitlement and misconceptions and embarrassment because I would have to get up because I would lose commission. You know, I would just be like, oh, I'm dealing with something crazy. I can't post for 2 weeks and I can't do any business, you know, and then I would just show up again and be like, kind of eat crow, you know. But again, I understand now that all of that is forging my metal. So whatever stuck, and whatever fell out wasn't meant for me. And sometimes you just have to fall and let the china break a couple hundred times to figure out which pieces are really yours. And then after that, I culminated into a moment where I was like, okay, before 2017, I'm going to make a website and I'm just going to do this. And I did it. And it was all about my jewelry. And January 1st, I heard very clearly in my car, because I would do my cards in my car because my parents are Christian and they think that was demonic. So in my car, I'm doing these cards and I heard very clearly, do 30 days of lives of animal medicine cards. And I was like, oh no, we're not going to do that because then my grandma's going to know and my aunties are going to know and my dad is going to know. And I'm in my father's house right now and I can't be like, that's like slap in the face kind of thing. But I had learned something over that last year, that the things that I resisted and I was most afraid of were exactly what I needed for a larger kind of movement, not just tiny pivots, but like a large shift. So I did it. And within a week, I had posted and had 30 people get their free individual readings, which I had never done. And I actually ended up doing like 56. And it just took off. Monique, who was my business advisor, asked me to be a part of her mastermind so that I could offer that kind of perspective and medicine to businesswomen as they move in their journey so they don't get stuck on the emotional and they can really enjoy their lives as they're moving towards where they want to be. And then it just kept happening. I got my own clients and but as I've kept moving on with it, this lessons have gone deeper and deeper where I realized that even with these cards as generally art, there's still a deeper, powerful, simpler stream of consciousness and intelligence that lies beneath that and everything else. And it's been really fun over the last couple of months to play with that and to see what that means. Because as my stream has moved faster, like as I'm moving faster, I find that everything is much more intense and richer. But the possibility of profound shifts are greater. So like this last few months, my father passed away and things had to I had to drop everything to move all this energy from this marriage and this huge house, and to move it into something where like my mother's going off, my father's transition, everything's in peace. I had to drop it and get even simpler, like lose even more of what my conditions and my identity of myself was, to just allow it to move through me. And in that, I realized, wow, the simpler thing, even at that point, is that commitment to joy, my personal joy, my love, to feeling a little bit more relief no matter what the situation is. It has been such a huge eye-opening experience for me to see the transition. I mean, it'll be a calendar year in January that I made this move. And that full calendar year, like, I moved out of the country, I got new gigs, I met hundreds of women. It's wild. It really is fascinating. And what I'm learning, what my soul gift is really fun. Like, fun is what lights me up. Silliness, engagement with you, trying to get you to laugh. I love it. I love trying to make people laugh all the time. It makes me light up because I see that. I'm like, oh, I brought relief. Yes, I'm getting you closer to what you want too. And we get to giggle all the way there. So it's been a really profound shift, because what I thought lit me up before, I don't have access to that now, but I'm still lit up because I had a simpler goal, which is just to have fun in whatever I'm presented with at the moment.
This is really interesting that you kind of went full circle. And then what I have found in your soul alignment journey is that at some point, after you let go of all the shit, like all things that was not aligned to you, and you said no, you said yes to the right things, and you're kind of shuffling through the shit. And then at some point you just realize this is just simple. My life should just be simple. I just do what makes me happy. I do the necessary things that makes everybody else happy, and your happiness starts to come from within. Right? Life is simple.
Yes.
It's not complicated. Your life and business is not simple. It's not complicated. It's just you made it complicated.
Yep.
And then when you really step into your superpower and just choose a direction, then doors just start opening up, right?
Yeah.
Because that was at that point where you felt I give up. I'm not gonna do anything anymore. Just give me the prize, And then when you let go of that ideas of what you needed to be and how you're supposed to do certain things, and then you're like, all that shit doesn't matter.
Look at all these hurdles. I made all these hurdles and all these conditions, and I've been busting my ass for decades trying to live by them like they mean something, like I'm some sort of samurai or something. I'm not. It's just me. And I can do it so differently. And what I keep telling myself is I can experience anything differently than someone else. I don't have to follow predominant experiences or someone else's past. I can experience it completely new. And in order to do that, I can't have any expectation on it. And for any control, I have to keep myself as joyful and excited about my life as I can, because that just puts me in a better neighborhood than if I landed down in, despair or worry or concern or strategy, which sometimes is actually more defensive. So you're actually thinking about what could go wrong. It's just been it's almost nitpicky. It's almost not fair when you think about well, shit, man, you get to say something, but I can feel it. And if I can feel that shift, then I'm responsible to its direction, then there's no turning back. I got to do it. I got to follow that.
Mm-hmm. So how do you, now that you've gone through that, how do you define success? What, because you went through so much pain and you endured a lot, how do you define it now?
I'm really defining it by what I'm experiencing at the moment. So what I've decided is I create my own reality. I'm 100% responsible for how I feel during this reality. And I'm accepting of this full spectrum of what I can experience. So I'm not always put myself up on a cross just because I feel sad one day. I get to do that. But I think it's really, has a lot to do with just laying down my conditions. Just not, there's so many rules. And this is the hardest part that's hard for anybody, because I do it all the time. So like in this moment right now, like just before I got on the phone with you, I'm like, should I go with a bright pink lipstick or a light lipstick? Should I sit on this bed? Should I not? Is it too intimate to sit in a bed? Well, it's not even my bed. Well, they don't even know that. I go through all these things. I'm like, all right, hold up, sister. How do you feel? I'm like, well, I got machaca in my belly. That's a good thing. And I had some really good horchata. My daughter is happy. I think we're okay, right? So like, it's this constant commitment to me rechecking in and going, all right. Because, you know, especially if you're like me, I've been an event planner, I've been a manager, I've managed restaurants. So my mind is used to thinking about 20,000 contingency plans, because I'm used to that phone ringing off going, the cooler's broken, so-and-so didn't show up, but da-da-da-da. And what I've had my biggest discipline to do, even now with my life being so different, is to stop and strip the moment of everything that's my story or anyone else's story. And that's the tricky shit, because then what's the story? Is the story where the value is, or is the story the behavior? Is the story the expectation? And the truth is, it's all of that. So for me to strip the story, that means I'm trying to take out value. I'm trying to take out expectation. I'm trying to take out any kind of sense of projection. And the only way I can do that with my mind is to distract myself into something that's purely blissful. So that's why I created it's called the Rebel's Guide to Feeling Better. And it's just a big hunk of stuff that I do. So it's like aromatherapy. Maybe I'll take some sweet orange oil and I'll put it in my palms and I'll do 10 deep breaths, like deep 10-second in, 10-second out, because you can't do anything else if you're going to try to do that. You know, like I do things that are pleasurable and take all of my physical, mental, and emotional attention, because I got to drop the oars. The more I try to sort out the current and the time and the temperature, the more I bury myself. When I drop the oars and I go straight to some kind of bliss, for me, smell is a really quick way to do that. So that's a really easy, rub a little oil on and it shifts my chemistry in my mind to be like, oh yeah, that's right. Get out of that crazy town. Or, you know, it could be anything. Lots of people do things. Some people write, some people like to verbalize things, some people do clearings. But I mean, I have a list. I have a gamut of things. And it's like 22 things long, and it keeps growing because I believe in a multi-front task. So I need to have that much backup for it. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes it doesn't go away with a 10-second breathing thing. Sometimes it's something like your father passed away and you've got all this stuff you got to do. So then it's the oil and a 15-minute meditation, and I'm wearing lavender pillow on my head as I type in an affirmation, and then I'll go into the kitchen and drink some ice cold chamomile tea, and then, you know, like I will just keep going. Sometimes it takes me 2 to 3 to 4 hours, depending on how much momentum I've built on holding myself to some kind of resistance. But I don't stop, because I know that I'm responsible to the shift, because I know what it feels like. So I can't fake it. I can't be like, oh, I feel better, and I know I don't. Then I'm just going to ask for it to magnify. So, I mean, that's just like the constant sense of discipline that I've been working with as I've experienced this, to see the simpler I make it, which is so funny because the list keeps growing on how to make it simple.
Yeah, right? And then you got really complicated stuff in there.
I got this massive, this is how you're simple. Boom.
I like how you try to shift your vibrational energy, like just like every moment, because to me that's like when you've really mastered your ability to like put yourself in the right place at the right time, you know, like get connected, is you have to like make choices upon choices. And it's kind of simple and sometimes big, but like just making the vibrational shift that you need to. And sometimes, like you said, you pull out those cards, or, you know, sometimes it's just like writing something out, like what's coming out of you. Cause you know, that's kind of what happened to you recently, right? You're just like, writing. Now you, Monique, wrote a book, and like all of these like new expressions,
yes,
right? Deeper stuff starts to come through.
Yes. And a dogged, like bear down, like mama bear, crazy lockjaw hyena dedication to not stopping the shifting until you feel the shift. Like for me, if I've done the oil, if I went and got a massage, if I went and got a tea and I'm sitting down to a beautiful meal and I get up and I have the music and I still don't feel good, then I'm going to take a nap. And if I wake up from that nap and I still don't feel good, then I'm going to do something else, because there's no point in me doing anything else until I get there. I don't have time to not do it. And if I've got hours worth of resistance, then I really don't have time to not address it. You know what I'm saying? Like that dedication to that stuff sometimes is what slips me up, because sometimes it starts first thing in the morning and I'm like, oh, I'm too tired to do a clearing. I'm just going to take a shower and drink a cup of coffee. And those days, by noon, I'm on my knees like, okay, you know what? I think everybody needs a timeout. I'm going to put some oil on, do a meditation, and take it out. Then I really got to do it, because there's just my commitment to my feeling really good in an authentic, true way is the only thing that defines me from my experience. You know, otherwise I'm just reacting and I'm just regurgitating everything I see, and there's no direction, there's no control, there's no compassion, there's no empowerment. You know what I'm saying? That doesn't lead to anything.
So what advice you would give to someone, you know, who wants to get into their genius, like as you have, you know, what like help you decide to do the work, you know, that you really love doing, you know, and create a soul-aligned life and business, to be more in your expertise? You know, what advice would you give to others?
I have to be honest for myself. Right before I called Monique, you know, I was totally broke, no direction, no money, totally confused. I thought I knew what was going on and everything just kaputzed. That like, I surrendered, I'm just going to try. That's part of it. I do a lot of that surrendering. I call it my superpower, actually. I named it a couple of years ago. I call it the fuck it. My superpower is literally, I'm like, fuck it, I'm out, whatever, I'm done. But I also think the other part that helped me, so I'm speaking to somebody who might not exactly know what it is they want, which was difficult for me because I knew I was a good artist, but I never wanted to actually spend 8 hours a day just painting or making jewelry, right? So I didn't actually still know what lit me up and fired me up. But I had something, and I tried something with what felt the best at that moment. And then I think this is the crucial element. By having other people come into my life, so what I did is I joined a mastermind, Monique's mastermind, and she creates an environment where everyone gets to speak into you directly as they see you. And it's a powerful intersection between the dysmorphia that we have about our own brilliance and our own abilities and the reality of what's being received out here. So when those two met, things collided, but it's like everything was in pieces and I was allowed to kind of put it together as it really fit best. But what I needed, which is I think one of the biggest problems for most people, was to abolish my isolation, not by saying I don't want to be isolated, but by just literally being surrounded by other people and letting them into that internal view of myself, my business, my, you know, how I was projecting myself, and allowing that in. Because I could have sat with them and rejected everything they said, but I sat with them, I listened, and I allowed it in. And that was where someone said to me, this woman, she was in my mastermind, and I respect her greatly. She said, you know, your jewelry is great, Liz, but it's not your calling. And so Monique was standing right next to me at that time, and she was like, I told you. And I was like, what? No one ever said this to me before. So Monique being like, I told you. I was like, you didn't say anything about this before. But this woman said to me, your gift is in your articulation. Your gift is in your counsel. That's God's gift on you. And I never thought of it that way. And I never saw that. My mother taught us how to speak well. And I've always been a good communicator. So I didn't see that as my gift. And that's what started shifting me to investigate and see what was there. And of course, it forced me to deal with my own stuff, right? Because I wanted to see the pretty shiny bits, but they were covered. So I had to wash them and put it in the kiln a couple hundred times. I had to ask you to help me to clear some old stuff, you know. But having that influence of people that I love and respected to show me what they see in me that I couldn't see in myself because of my own dysmorphia about my brilliance. And by dysmorphia, I mean, I really had almost an onset of an illness that couldn't see me as great because of my own history, my own conditions. But that person that I put credence in said I was good at something, and it forced me to look at it because it felt good. It felt right when she said those words to me. My whole body said yes. So I couldn't ignore that. Again, there's that personal responsibility. I'm 100% responsible for what I can feel, and I'm 100% responsible for whether I choose to ignore or investigate it. And therein lies my choice of growth, right? So it was, I really believe that for someone else, it would be A, absolutely surrender. That has to be part of it. But B, taking yourself out of some isolation with these private thoughts or ideas or dreams or whatever it is, and just throwing it into the mix with other humans and letting them come to you and be like, you're really good at that. You'd be like, oh, I didn't even know I was good at that. They're like, no, you're really good at that. And then you have another avenue of exploration, a possibility. And then you get a little bit closer.
Yeah, I love that. That's like going from like, hey, it's not who you are, right? You're probably doing the wrong thing, but this is who you are. Why don't you try that and see how that works out?
Yeah, yeah. And, you know, I think that's the power of the mastermind. I mean, that's what we do, is we're not in there with everybody in the mastermind going, you do this and you do that and you do this and you do that. We say, here's a platform, know that you're unconditionally loved and supported, put it out there and know that people will respond. And it's not just us, because we're still limited. You can't base your reflection off of what, like when you go to TJ Maxx, you like the 4 mirrors, 4. You like the 3 mirrors better than the 1, right? Because then you're like, oh, I see my chichos on the side. Okay, I see how I look, right? So it's the same thing when it comes to inviting more than just your own perspective. That variety, that stuff is worth its weight in gold for reals, you know?
Mm-hmm. And it takes a long time to accept that, like that you have a blind spot and you seriously cannot see yourself. And then when you hear it from other people, and then you start to recognize that, yeah, I really don't understand myself.
Oh
Or
my gosh, yeah. My first reaction was, okay, I've been working a year on this website for my jewelry, so talk to you later. I really was like, and how is that gonna happen? I was like, and anyways, I just like chucked it in the back of the groceries, like, that's great, whatever.
Yeah, the resistance. It's funny because that's what you have to go through when you're getting back into alignment. When you're getting back into alignment, you go through this like huge ass resistance, like everything, because everything that you ever thought you were, like, it's not true.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And you're like, wait, so you're telling me I should focus there? And then so when you do focus there, there's like, I don't know if that's right, because I've been doing this for so long.
Yeah, it feels weird. It's like you put on a new pair of shoes, and your old pair of shoes were your feet. You're like, they felt like your feet. And your new pair of shoes, you're like, oh, my pinky toe ain't so happy here. You have to sweat them a little bit, get it hot, make it mold around you. It's like, anything new is so awkward, and it's okay that it's awkward. And sometimes that awkwardness is, again, testing your mettle. If it sticks, great. If you're willing to move through the awkward teenage phase of a new dream or a new idea or a new aspect of your personality, then there's something there that's worth going for,
Exactly. Thank you so much. This is like an awesome conversation.
I had so much fun. And I want to say thank you for the mentorship that you've given me over the last year. You're so generous and so authentic and so deeply accepting in a very unconditional, non-judgmental way. And I loved watching your transformation this year as you're like, I thought I had it, and then I didn't have it, and then I cried about it. Now I'm back. Let's talk about it. And I'm like, yes, because your new language was very analogous to my journey. I think that's one thing that's really helpful to learn, is those people that you love, that resonate with you, they're on that just means they're on that same journey, so their highs and lows, if you're privileged enough to get to see what that is, there's like magic in there. There's nuggets in there for all of us. So I deeply appreciate your transparency and your generosity with what you know, and the opportunity to have a chance to just talk with you. We've never actually done this, so this was so fun for me. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. I'm so glad that I met you, you know, during that time when you really needed the help, and then you've gotten the help, and then you experienced what you just told us. Just phenomenal. And this is the kind of stuff that I want to, you know, I want my audience to understand, is that like this shit takes time for you to really realize your true alignment. You know, you have to test the waters. You have to take responsibility. You have to like let go of all the things that you never thought like would misalign you in the first place. And then you find out it is. And you're like, oh my God, like everything I ever thought about myself is not true.
Yeah. Isn't it so the story of Siddhartha, though? When you think about it, it is that story of Siddhartha and Buddha and this like years and years of amazing experience. And at the end, you still stripped yourself bare and you're like, that's all I ever still needed. It carried me through. No matter if I wore the beggar's clothes or the king's robe, it was that simplicity of my bliss, of my love, of my presence. That was all that was ever required. It's such a powerful, beautiful place to live and breathe and understand.
Yes. And then coming back again, that life is simple.
Uh-huh.
Everything is simple. You just made it damn complicated.
I know.
You are, you know, shut up and do, you know, really truly what you're meant to do.
Exactly. If you're not having fun doing it, then you need to get back to the drawing board because you missed something. Because it is supposed to be fun. I truly believe that.
Yes, totally. So do you have any last advice, or you have your special gift you want to share with everybody?
Oh, yes. So the Rebel's Guide to Feeling Better is actually right now, it's the skeleton of all the stuff that's going to be in that book is a free PDF on my website, which is vibrationalguide.com. And it'll pop up. It's just, you can get it at the bottom of the screen or whatever. But it's just a list. I think it's like 22 or 17, something like that. A list of the different things that I do that keep me up and moving. Or if I'm feeling kind of shitty, I feel a little bit better. Like I'm always down just for a little bit of relief. That's the term for feeling good or success. Just that you can find some relief. You're doing pretty good. And if you want to work with me right now, you can work with me through the mastermind that I do with Monique. But I'm really excited. I'm going to have a book coming out in the new year, and I'm going to do a little class with it, and it's all going to be about the same stuff. Just finding any freaking way to feel good. It'll be antidotal and resourceful, a little bit about, you know, my checkered past, and then how I made it all beautiful and exciting and a really good life for me and my daughter.
Awesome. Thank you so much for taking time to sharing your amazing stories.
Thank you so much. It's such a great honor. I was looking forward to it all week.
Yes, yes. So everyone else who's listening in, thank you so much for listening, and to our next episodes coming next 2 weeks. We will see you all very soon. Have a beautiful day.
Bye.